there are 20 new features in the ML topic, and this is actually one of the biggest release from AWS for machine learning and artificial intelligence. Most of these features are already embedded in high-level services, as fraud detection and many other features that Matthias already covered. And many other ones are at the low level. So you as a developer, you might be interested in take your hands on these features. Just to have a brief overlook of the high-level services that AWS is currently providing in the ML scenario. We have Amazon Comprehend, Amazon Lex, Poly, recognition in 2 different flavors, image and video, Amazon Translate, and Amazon Transcribe. Some of these services maybe you ever heard about, and for example, we have Comprehend that is able to understand the content of a text, which is able to build chatbox, Poly, which convert text to speech in different languages and also giving some intonation, accents, pauses, so to give like a flavor of a real text spoken by a real human being, and Amazon Recognition for image detection of entities within these images, and of course also in videos as well, translate different text into different languages, and transcribe from moving from audio to text. All these services are high-level services, so you can use them out of the box. You don't need to train them. You can call them through APIs if you want to have programmatic access to them, or through the GUI interface that AWS already provides. And they leverage a lot of models that are very well known, which you can also want to use them in more details. And for this scope, AWS provides Amazon SageMaker, another service that received a lot of new enhancements this year, and I will talk about that in a second. So let's move to focus on one of these services, which is Amazon Recognition. In the last reInvent, AWS boosted the functionalities of Amazon Recognition, allowing recognition to be flexible. And in this case, for Amazon Recognition, we have the possibility to now submit custom labels to Amazon Recognition, meaning that we move from recognizing, I don't know, objects, people, text, and simple activities that were already pre-trained for you by AWS itself, but also to recognize things that are not so common. I'm giving you an example. In this case, we want to recognize technical parts, most probably from engines. I'm not a very good expert in engines, but I'm pretty sure the turbocharger, the torque converter, the alternator, and the spark plugs are part of the engines. And these are not very common entities to recognize images or in videos, but maybe it's one of your cases. You want to recognize them in your inventory, for example. So what you have to do and what you immediately can apply this to Amazon Recognition is to submit your training set to Amazon Recognition, allow Amazon Recognition to detect some features in your training set, and then later on ask Recognition to recognize if in any of the images of your test set or of your production set, Amazon Recognition is able to recognize exactly the labels that you submitted previously. So this is out of the box solution, because you just have to provide the training set to Amazon Recognition. You don't have to tune the models behind or in the backend. You just have to provide a good training set, and then you're good to go. And you can apply the capabilities of recognition immediately in your software solution, for example. But as I said before, you might want to go even more in details and more in depth in this case into machine learning and artificial intelligence development. And for this reason, AWS provide Amazon SageMaker as a end-to-end ML service. And when I say end-to-end, I really mean it. So from the design of the model, so from the data analytics point of view, to the deployment in production. So in one single platform, you have all the tools that you need to recognize which features are more important ones in your data set, how to train your data set correctly, how to scale the training perhaps, how to test it if the model that you selected or you developed yourself is the most appropriate one for your data set. And then finally to apply this in production, meaning that you want to call the Amazon SageMaker Now model to get some forecasting or predictions out of it. To achieve these results, AWS released a lot of tools within the SageMaker family. So Matthias already mentioned about SageMaker Notebooks, but SageMaker Notebooks are only one of the many tools of the SageMaker Studio environment. As you see here, all the green boxes are new features or are new tools that have been released for SageMaker. We have SageMaker Autopilot, which allows you and helps you in building and training your models and selecting the one that is most suitable for your data. For doing that, SageMaker helps use the help of Model Monitor, which allows you to automatically detect data drifting, which is a very painful task to perform manually. SageMaker Experiments, which allow you to track in time the different trials that you want to perform onto your models and onto your data. The debugger, which exactly at this point to figure it out which points of your models are not suitable for your data anymore, or could create in the future some criticalities. I'll show you now a few of these tools. So as you can see, if you had used before SageMaker, you see now that the interface has completely been redesigned. Now we have this wonderful dark theme, which makes it so professional and ready to use that you die to use it. And joke apart, this gives you like a pane of glass service to monitor the entire workflow that you want to use for your model development. It gives you like a unified view where you have your notebooks, your experiments, your debugging, for example, and if in case you want to profile as well, you can do it right here. And of course, detecting if there is any deviance from the expected results. In the studio, you have the part that is dedicated to the experiments. The experiments are basically a collection of different variables and different variable parameters. And the experiment basically collects all this variation around one single or multiple models, giving you the chance to not only track your results, but also to reproduce your results in the future. And of course, to compare the performances that are given by different parameter combinations onto the data set that you want to analyze. Just as a summary of the experiments, your experiments, you can see them as these red boxes into this slide, which are called trials. And into these trials, for example, we want to compare different topologies of different models that you see. For example, trial 1 is different from trial 2, not because of the data, which is the same, the A box, the blue box, but because we are using different models on the back end. So we are comparing a neural topology made by 2 hidden layers versus a neural topology which is made by 4 different layers. And we want also to do something on the data. So we want to compare third experiments, which now changes the input data and also the model topology. And we want to see if any of these 3 combinations of parameters, data, model, complexity is the winning version of the model that I want to do and I want to perform in the future. And SageMaker Experiments allows you to have a look immediately to which of these combination is the winning one. With the monitor basically helps you in this phase to select which model is the most suitable for your data set and for the outcome of your analysis, of course. And in this monitor, you have the model quality, the sensitivity, and in case there is a data drifting in your data, eventually detect it and do something, meaning changing the model to adapt to the different condition of your data. And this is actually very handy when you have a model in production that is not performing anymore in the range of the expectations. Autopilot is the last tool that I want to show you here. It combines all the features that I just briefly mentioned. So from the ingestion of the raw data to the deployment of the model in production, passing from a model leaderboard, which basically gives you a feeling about which model of the many that you could theoretically develop is the most suitable for your target, for your expectation. Additional releases that I did not have the time to cover. I said about the debugger. This simplifies a lot of debugging of machine learning models, not only from the perspective, the technical perspective. So if the model is stuck somewhere in the training phase or testing phase, but also to detect problems in the development itself at the early stages. Monitor, which basically gives you an idea about data drifting and underperformance of your models. Augmented AI, it simplifies the human validation, meaning that it gives you like a nice GUI interface where real human beings this time can validate the predictions of your models. And so basically you have a possibility to ask someone to help you out in giving good validation tests. And then, of course, if you have no time or you cannot invest into your own algorithms, you can use them out of the box from the marketplace. There is now a huge marketplace with a lot of algorithms that you can use out of the box and just play and see if they work for you, and with minimal amount of coding required. And of course, there is a very nice integration with Kubernetes. If you have already your cluster running somewhere, SageMaker now interfaces with this pretty smoothly.